What a match at the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona. A thriller from the first whistle to the last. From Højlund's involvement in João Pedro's goal to late-game chaos, Chelsea edged Napoli 3-2 to secure their place in the top 8 of the Champions League table. So how did Liam Rosenior outmaneuver Antonio Conte? Rosenior set Chelsea up in a 4-2-3-1, but with a major tactical twist. Chelsea effectively played with only one natural center-back, as Reece James partnered Fofana centrally, allowing Chelsea to be far more flexible in build-up and progression. This structure helped Chelsea manipulate Napoli's press and create numerical superiority in central areas. Antonio Conte, needing points to push into the top 24 and secure qualification for the playoffs, stayed loyal to his 3-4-3 system, looking to dominate wide areas and overload Chelsea's back line through aggressive wing-back positioning. This clash wasn't just about moments, it was a structural and positional battle. Let's break down how Rosenior's tactical decisions gave Chelsea the edge against Conte's Napoli.
As they were in possession, Napoli under Antonio Conte transformed from their apparent 3-4-3 to a 5-3-3 formation for build-up play. The goalkeeper, Alex Merritt, led the first line as a central center-back, with Alessandro Buongiorno and Juan Jesus forming the wide line. One of the wing-backs dropped low to complete the five-man defense, which was Matias Oliveira for most of the game, with Spinazzola pushing up higher, effectively playing as a winger. Giovanni Di Lorenzo then moved in to fill the role of a left-back in the second line. Spinazzola's high positioning was crucial. This allowed him to move wide, which in turn enabled Antonio Vergara to move higher into more central areas, where he often dropped deep to create triangles with Stanislav Lobotka and Scott McTominay. This enabled Napoli to maintain clean possession of the ball while ensuring they were not outnumbered in midfield. Vergara's high positioning caused Chelsea endless trouble. Since he did not drop deep into midfield early, the Chelsea midfield pressers often failed to pick him out or follow him. This forced Marc Cucurella into a difficult decision: to move out to mark Vergara, leaving the defense exposed, or to press Spinazzola, allowing Vergara to receive the ball freely in the spaces between the lines. To counter Conte's build-up, Liam Rosenior took a deliberate approach to flood the center of the pitch aggressively. At times, Fofana was left as Chelsea's lone center-back, often isolated in 1-versus-1 situations against Rasmus Højlund. At the same time, James, Gusto, and Cucurella were encouraged to press their direct opponents aggressively, with the freedom to press high up the pitch. Consequently, Chelsea maintained 8 players inside Napoli's half of the pitch at times, even during Napoli's goal kicks. The strategy was simple: compress the pitch, force Napoli to play in tight spaces, and gain turnovers high up the pitch. This strategy was extremely risky. Napoli could have potentially bypassed Chelsea's press with a single combination and caught Chelsea's defense off guard with rapid attacks. However, the reward was worth the risk. Chelsea gained turnovers high up the pitch, allowing them to attack Napoli's disorganized defense. More importantly, Chelsea denied Napoli's team time and space to implement their build-up strategy. While the press did result in some negative consequences for Chelsea, it is important to note that Napoli lacked the speed required to fully capitalize on the space left behind. When Napoli scored the opening goal in the first half, Chelsea changed the manner in which they pressed. Andre Santos was told to drop deeper, dropping alongside Wesley Fofana to offer more protection and, importantly, to reduce Rasmus Højlund's time and space on the ball. This small but significant change altered Chelsea's defensive shape. By having Santos mark the central area instead of pushing high up the pitch, Chelsea took away the isolation that Fofana was experiencing and denied Napoli the direct passing options into Højlund. While Napoli were still able to move the ball out to the flanks, their central point of reference was effectively nullified. The effect of this change was to leave Højlund isolated from the play, often receiving the ball with his back to goal or being forced to compete for high balls instead of working a combination. The effect was evident in the statistics. He ended the game with the lowest touches of any starting forward, which highlighted just how effective Rosenior's tactical change was in turning the game back in Chelsea's favor after going behind. When Chelsea had the ball, Rosenior's team would usually shift one fullback into the half space to help create a four-man midfield box. In this game, though, there was a noticeable adjustment. Malo Gusto stayed wide, while Estevao moved inside into more central zones. This still allowed Chelsea to build their midfield box, but with different player profiles filling those roles. The idea was to stretch Napoli across the width of the pitch while keeping control through the middle. Early on, Napoli opted against an aggressive press. Conte set his side up in a compact 5-4-1 mid-block. One wing-back dropped back to join the three center-backs and form a back five, while the two wide attackers tracked back to create a four-man midfield. Højlund led the line alone, focusing on blocking passing lanes into midfield rather than pressing Chelsea's center-backs directly. This setup blunted Chelsea's usual midfield dominance. Napoli narrowed the pitch well, squeezed the space between the lines, and used selective man-marking without losing their overall structure. As a result, Chelsea struggled to fully exploit their box midfield in the opening stages, often being pushed wide or slowed down when trying to progress through central areas. In response, Chelsea pushed their line higher and tried to force Napoli into engaging them. Higher up the pitch, their shape resembled a 1-4-2-3, with Fofana left as the only player in Chelsea's half. Reece James and Marc Cucurella were encouraged to advance, but importantly they held their width rather than moving inside. Enzo Fernandez and Estevao positioned themselves slightly deeper than the front three of Pedro Neto, João Pedro, and Gusto, operating between Napoli's midfield and defensive lines. This positioning was designed to tempt Napoli's wide midfielders into stepping out to press. When they did, Chelsea immediately looked to attack the space they left behind. With Enzo and Estevao operating deeper than the forward line, Napoli's defenders faced a dilemma. Step out to close them down and risk leaving gaps, or hold their line and allow Chelsea time and space to turn and play forward. Chelsea repeatedly exploited these moments with direct passes into João Pedro, who consistently drifted into the channels left by Napoli's wider center-backs. Although this didn't lead to goals in the first half, it unsettled Napoli's defensive line and forced them into uncomfortable decisions. Enzo was especially influential, often the only player dropping deep enough to receive under pressure, break lines with his passing, or carry the ball forward. The turning point came after the break with a change in personnel. Rosenior brought on Cole Palmer for Pedro Neto, instantly adding a second player capable of dropping into deeper areas and controlling the game between the lines. With both Enzo and Palmer able to receive, turn, and play forward, Napoli's compact block started to lose its cohesion. Palmer made an immediate impact. By dropping off the front line, he pulled defenders out of position before playing incisive, line-breaking passes into João Pedro. These actions directly led to Chelsea's goals. In just one half, Palmer registered 2 assists, converting Chelsea's control into decisive output and sealing a victory that secured their place in the Champions League top 8.